Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a different video. I'm going to start keeping track of the campaign I'm running, and this will be campaign video 1. And it's just going to be a recap of what's happened so far, and I'll do this after I run games each week, so that way me and my players could look back on these videos and figure out what's happened, what's going on. It's more of a video form of me taking notes instead of writing everything down of everything that happened in a game. So this one's going to cover session 0, which was character creation, and session 1, which was the beginning of the dungeon. A little bit of the dungeons were looked at in session 0, and then one of the dungeons was picked to explore for session 1. I am running the fantasy trip in the labyrinth for this campaign. The plan is to use this to build the world, have a bunch of fun encounters, and from there eventually transition into Pathfinder with the characters. I'm having all the players make 4 characters, and they're rolling randomly on the tables, so they're getting random races, random classes for the fantasy trip. And then we'll take those later when I feel they've done enough adventuring in the fantasy trip game system, that we'll take those characters and convert them over to Pathfinder, rolling new stats and figuring out what bonuses they'd get if, say, somebody's a lizardman in the fantasy trip or a gargoyle. They're going to have different stats than what's normally available for Pathfinder. With that, I dropped them in a town. The world map I'm using is going to be North and South America. I'm going to take, say, the Canada region and make that Norse. I'm going to take sections of the United States and make them different cultures. I'm going to take Mexico, Central America, South America, and make all those different cultures. And I'm going to take the Bahamas and make those, say, the Greek islands and such. And that's my general thoughts. I still need to draw out my maps, do a big world map, do a smaller map, and then do a local map, and do an overland map. The overland map would be like 6 or 8 miles per hex, and the local map would be 1 mile per hex. So I'll be working on those over the course of a couple of months. The party wanted to be in the Norse area, so I put them there. And then from there, they've started creating characters. They don't want to obey my rule of creating 4 characters all at once, so they've created 1 or 2, maybe 3 characters by now each. The exception being my friend Dakota. He's created his 4 characters right off the bat. And then I think Bobby's friend Crazy Eyes created 4 characters right off the bat because he rolled a bunch of wizards on the random creation and 1 character that wasn't. So it's going to be a chore for me to get the character names down, but I'll start taking notes of what the characters are participating in which adventure, because how I have it set up is going to be a living world. So as a living world campaign, the only time you're exploring a dungeon or doing something very dangerous is going to be when we sit down to play. At the end of the game session, you need to be out of the dungeon. And then the days or weeks that passes between game sessions pass in the world, and we get to figure out what the hell's been going on to all the characters and such. And have they been doing jobs to make money? Have they been going bankrupt? Have they been a thief and gotten caught? So on and so forth. Also, in the fantasy trip, you heal 1 hit point for every 2 days that pass. So if we, say, run a game this week and then we don't play for 2 weeks, well, you get 14 days go by, so you get 7 hit points back. So healing's very slow. There is no magic itself that heals you. You have to get either a doctor, which they call Physiker, to look at you immediately after a combat. If they can tend to you after a combat, they can heal some of your hit points. And it's not much, it's like 1 or 2 points. If they're a master, they can do up to 3. And that just essentially they bandage you up so you don't bleed out the full loss of hit points that you have written down. And then there's a healing potion that can be purchased for 150 silver, which is their gold piece. Like where D&D and Pathfinder uses gold pieces for the value of everything, they use silver pieces for the value of everything as the common currency. And then from there, gold piece is like, if I use D&D terms, a gold piece is 10 silver, but if I use its terms, I think it's 50 silver to a gold. I'll have to look that up for future references. Well, the party went to the swamp area from the town to explore the outskirts of the first dungeon. And there was a centaur, a gargoyle, were played by my friend Dakota. I'm allowing every player to play up to 2 characters at one time in this setup because this system is easy to run. You're just rolling, you only have 3 stats and you're rolling under that, and your hit points total is not going to be very much. But let's see, only 1 or 2 players have 2 characters total in this adventure, and this was the first session 0. Well, they go outside the swamp, and I think it took them about half a day to get there. In that swamp area, they found goblins making camp outside of an old ruined castle. And what brought them there was the rumors of the old ruined castle. They then retreat back to town. They follow another rumor that is up in the mountains nearby. There's an old mine that was taken over by a dragon, and the dragon hasn't been seen in many years, so they want to take a chance to see if the dragon is dead. And when they get up there, they start encountering traps in the main entrance, and I don't think they fought anything the first time, and then they retreated. And then a week went by, a few more players created characters and joined in the next session. And this time they decided they were going to go into the mine. So Dakota, instead of playing his centaur and his gargoyle, picked 2 other characters that would actually fit in a mine easily and work that way. And they entered the mine, and they made it past the traps, maybe triggering 1 or 2 that actually did anything to the party out of the like 6 or 7 that had been set in the entrance. And then they make it into a big room. Looks like an old hangout room for the mine. They find rails and carts on rails and stuff, and they start deciding whether they want to push them further down in, trigger some traps and stuff like that. And they ended up doing that to clear a good portion of stuff out of their way. In the first main room, they encountered, I don't know, like a dozen kobolds. And there was no light in the room, so the party had to bring their own light. And then there was a bunch of storage containers around this room that were old. Some of them newer than others that had been taken off of, say, passing caravans that have been raided. Party dispatches of the kobolds pretty quickly, but some of them retreat down the corridor because kobolds are cowards, and kobolds will never stand to fight when they're very sure they're going to lose. And after retreating, the party follows them into a bigger room, and this room ended up having, I think I had put 2 kobolds per PC in this room. Party had a big fight here with the kobolds. The boss kobolds that I had set up was a mage and a armored fighter. And they were in the back, and within 2 rounds, they decided they weren't going to hang out here because the other kobolds weren't doing so good. That said, the other kobolds were really... 3 of the party members were taking lots of damage from 3 of the kobolds. And those party members were the ones having the hardest time hitting and hurting the kobolds. At this point, coming from the rear of the cave, one of the PCs was in the back corridor guarding in case of attacks from the rear, and he saw a giant wolf and a goblin. I believe it was a goblin, or maybe it was a hobgoblin. Not sure. I'll ask him later just to clarify that. And it entered, and it sees the destruction in the first room, and it sees the character in the hallway, and it's like, well, I guess my plans have changed. And then it retreats backwards and leaves. And the party doesn't know what that was about. It never spoke any more than that. So the party then, after dispatching the kobolds and trying to pick up the pieces from their adventure, they decided to go deeper into the mine to try to follow the kobolds that had retreated. They make it to a elevator shaft, and they go down an elevator. The elevator goes down, passes 2 levels where there was no airflow, there was no interesting sense, there was no noise. And then they hit a 3rd level where they hear rackets of kobolds. They go down even further to the 4th level, which is where the elevator stopped. And at the 4th level, they see some gold veins in the wall. 2 of the characters spend about an hour with improper tools to get about, I think, a ½ pound to a pound of gold each out of the wall. And that's that's unprocessed gold. So it's probably going to amount to a little bit less than that. But it's still gold, and they still got it. But they had the feeling of air passing through this tunnel. So they retreated, and that's where that first adventure ended. They plan to come back, and it's been about 5 to 6 weeks since we've played. I'm thinking it's been about 5. So I'm going to have 5 weeks go by. So we can just figure what they've been up to for 5 weeks before they come back to this. If I've gotten anything wrong, guys, put them in the comments below so I can read them and update my notes. Hopefully this will be a little bit less rambling, a little bit more organized as I do this fresher from playing the games. Well, till I see you all again.